That is, Zapatero suggests to Julio Martinez at Moncloa that he start setting up companies, and that was while he was still prime minister, to set up companies in order to grow, and in 15 years to establish 39 companies in 7 different countries: Spain, the Dominican Republic, Panama, Ecuador, Peru, Dubai, and of course Venezuela.
Well, even though we're in the military, there's no shame in admitting that they're afraid, because the truth is their lives have been in danger. We're talking about cases of traumatic brain injuries, broken and fractured ribs, wrists, shoulders, elbows, and lacerations.
We need to wake up. You don't see anywhere else in the world what you see here with its anthem, its flag, its symbols. Let's leave those things behind. Let's see if we realize that a nation has to command respect, starting with us respecting it ourselves. Let's not let this fade away. Let's unite even more. Let's consolidate it and make it grow. Alberto.
I don't know if he intends to run away, but it's definitely very complicated for him. And from what I hear, he's been completely devastated for weeks. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. He barely wants to leave the house because he knows the legal trouble awaiting him is extremely serious.
We have won in football socially, and we've given them a lesson. They have done what they know how to do, and we, out of love, patriotism, and understanding, will hold on to these days of joy, because it hurts them no matter how much they've tried to paint it as a plurinational team, as a team that embraces different sensibilities. Go to hell. Spain has won, and long live Spain.
Castillon Confidencial by Albert Castillon.
My insurance sponsors the editorial of Castillon Confidential.
Friends, welcome. Insiders, thank you for being there. Strength, honor, and onward, because the battle is being won by leaps and bounds. Thank you for your loyalty, your affection, and for sharing this show in many places, for taking parts of it, for making it your own. There's no problem. As long as you mention us, we're more than happy. Look, the Rodriguez-Zapatero phenomenon is something to be analyzed in criminalistics, right? In the right department or in the crime section of a newspaper. He went from holding rallies with Sanchez as close friends to testifying in the Senate. And in an interview, which is better forgotten, on Onda Cero, he said he was innocent of everything. He went from that to having millions in jewelry discovered in his safe, and now to his inner circle admitting what we were saying. That he was a lobbyist and commission agent who took advantage of his position and public money to make himself rich. No one had ever fallen from so high before. He was the guru of the Sanchez camp, the man who justified everything, who defended Sanchez as if he were his own son. When it was time to negotiate with Puigdemont and Santos Zerdan failed, they sent Zapatero. When it came to foreign policy, it was Zapatero who led Pedro Sanchez's trips abroad, especially to China. How much could he have earned in 15 years? Because we're talking about 15 years in which Zapatero stopped being a former prime minister to become a man involved in illicit business. In fact, Julio Martinez, the man who, starting today, will politically bury Rodriguez Zapatero, met Zapatero himself at Moncloa. We're talking about the year 2011, when he still hadn't left office. They were introduced by a mutual friend, Javier de Paz, who is now the president of Movistar Plus. He was the intermediary who suggested to Julio Martinez, why don't you buy a property from Rodriguez Zapatero in Vera? This property, Vera, is in Almeria. It's a beautiful place. It was a townhouse, very comfortable. Did Zapatero want to sell it to get cash or to buy another property? No. In Moncloa, which is where the first meeting between Julio Martinez and Zapatero took place with the mediation of Javier de Paz, What was proposed was that this place, that townhouse in Vera, would already serve to establish companies in the name of Julio Martinez with their headquarters in that house. That is, Zapatero proposes to Julio Martinez in Moncloa that he start setting up companies. And that was while he was still president of the government. To set up companies in order to grow, and in 15 years establish 39 companies in 7 different countries. Spain, the Dominican Republic, Panama, Ecuador, Peru, Dubai, and of course Venezuela. If a deal needed to be closed, Zapatero would possibly talk to Sanchez and reach an agreement. If the tax authorities were after them, Zapatero would make sure Maria Jesus Montero was removed from any inspection of his Julito Martinez, his frontman. Zapatero did all the work and Julio took care of tying up the loose ends. That's why Julio Martinez traveled so many times on Delcy Rodriguez's plane. In fact, Julio Martinez ended up making a deal with the prosecutor's office because otherwise his trusted accountant, Cristobal Cano, was going to spill the beans. He was going to tell everything. An uncontrollable passion for money, for business, led Zapatero to start setting up the scheme while he was still in office. And he was even freed when he was no longer tied down by so many official commitments to become what he most wanted to be a businessman recognized in the world he had helped. In other words, the world where dictators do as they please and where he could do business with them. Of course, especially since he had the favor of entire countries he had helped, like Venezuela. Then during Rajoy's period, he kept a low profile with his businesses. In fact, many of the companies created by Julio Martinez didn't become active until Sanchez took office. It was in 2019. 19. Sanchez had only been in power for a few months. Zapatero steps in and embeds himself in Sanchez's government to end up bleeding it dry of public money, contracts, and favors. In exchange for what? That's something you have to ask the corrupt president of Spain. With Sanchez, Zapatero achieved what he never imagined, becoming the prime minister in the shadows. He was the one pulling the strings to close public deals while taking a private and personal commission for himself. We're hearing right now that Zapatero is terrified after the statements from Julio Martinez and the heads of Plus Ultra, because there are already many people here, not just one, who are exposing everything. But in this Plus Ultra bailout, which is what has revealed Zapatero's true character, there's something that doesn't add up. Does a former prime minister get involved in such a mess for €500,000? For 1%? With the money he made from Venezuela, oil, gold mines, China, would $500,000 really get him involved in that arrangement, leaning on CEPI, Sanchez, the government, and the Council of Ministers? Here's a secret we're going to point out to you, and we'll tell you about it in a special video in the next few hours. Stay tuned because it's explosive. It's something that no one has told until now, and we've been able to find out. Let me tell you that in the last few hours, I've received a call from someone very important, someone all of you know. It was the first time they called me, the first time we talked. We've chatted a lot on WhatsApp, but this was the first time personally. And that person gave me the key, and he is absolutely trustworthy. They say the company Plus Ultra belongs to a group of businessmen close to Chavismo. There have even been rumors, and I've talked about it too, that it could belong to Delcy Rodriguez or Celia Flores. It doesn't belong to any of the people I've mentioned, not even to those who are officially shareholders. They would allegedly be frontmen. Frontmen for the two bosses, two men who are the real owners of the company Plus Ultra. One is Venezuelan and the other is Spanish. I will give you the names in a special video in the next few hours. Friends, it's been 3 days since Spain's victory in the World Cup. We have to keep celebrating for a few more days. Why? Because there are people who have a really hard time when we celebrate. And I'm not talking about those who lost to the national team. No. I'm talking about Spaniards who don't want to be. And there are very few of them, not even 1%, maybe 1 or 2% of Spaniards. But they run the government of Spain. They're all those who support Sanchez. BNG, PNV, Junts, Esquerra, Bildu, de Proletares. Ultimately, those who hate Spain, even if they have a Spanish ID, and they don't defend the majority or democracy, they were never Democrats. They were always coup plotters. In Bilbao, the mayor banned screens in the city to follow the World Cup, and the PP only put up one. They tried to get rid of her. Watch this scene because there's a heroine in this story. That woman in red you see there is the PP councillor of Bilbao, Esther Martinez. As you can see, her only weapon is a fan. While stones and bottles were flying, she defended the stand as if she were a police officer or a civil guard officer on duty. Congratulations to Esther Martinez, because that's the right attitude. I wish more people from the PP had it. Among those attacks that we are telling you about and that we cannot normalize is the one against our fellow journalist from OK Diario, Kake Minuesa. Watch the scene. Long live the...
The police, the chanchas want me to leave. That calling me Kake Minuesa, son of a bitch, is the nicest thing they say. And this is what they show themselves to be. Come on, what do you want? What do you want?
What do you want? What do you want?
Did you see this kick he gave me? The tough guy.
Tough guy.
Thank you.
That's what you are. See how they're throwing bottles and everything at me? They're throwing bottles at us, they've kicked us, they've spit on us. These are the brave thugs.
Just for wearing the Spanish flag around my waist and the national team jersey. Just for that, kicks, punches, the police protecting him, they spit on him. If we normalize this, gentlemen, tomorrow it could be you who suffers this kind of violence. Kake Minuesa, how are you, my friend?
Good. I mean, let's say I'm supported by all of you, by the patriots, by the people who don't like these things being done. And it's true that there have been people who got beaten up for wearing a Spain shirt. But all they did to me was shout, Kake Minuesa, you son of a bitch, we're going to kill you. These are the GKS guys. These are the Bildu ETA crowd who, since they don't like freedom of expression, wanted to beat me up directly. If I wear the athletic shirt, well, Go Athletic is the team that has so many Spaniards, right? If I carry a Spanish flag, of course, long live Spain and go Spain in Bilbao. The event was really newsworthy. Giant screens in Bilbao set up by the PP, which the mayor didn't want to put up because he said there was no demand. And when we got there and there were thousands of people, well, that contradicts the message, right? Of course, that there was no demand. And if there was no demand, why do you close off the fountain, right? Why do you fence it off so people can't go celebrate? So, well, in the face of the boycott, I think, Albert, that we can say that the best ones have won. We have won in sports, we have won socially, we have won by overcoming fear. But the reality is that I get attacked and the press associations forget about it, right? Maybe I should have put on a sling or something so they would pay attention to me. I mean,
so then Channel 1 calls you and hires you. I won't live to see it. I won't live to see it. Well, we don't expect anything from the press associations. You, me, and many journalists haven't for a long time. But it's important for people to know what's happening because this is street violence. ETA isn't dead. These young people who haven't lived through ETA's massacres believe what they're told is true, and they have the support of Bildu, but also from the Socialist Party of the Basque Country and even from the PNV, right?
Yes, of course, of course. The complicity, well, like Bukele says, right? Any politician who doesn't fight crime is an accomplice. And that's where we are with a PNV that reaps the benefits, but they're actually preferred partners in the government. But the thing is, this guy who kicks me, who they say today has already been identified, he's the same one who attacked at a Vox tent. This guy is leading these new kids. They've been told by GKS, by that Basque socialism, that they are the real communists. And communism is defended through violence. It should also be said that they're very lost because once you take the mask off all this, there are a lot of Moroccans who don't seem very Basque, right? So really, who defends violence? Well, people who are brainless, because of course we can record and try not to get beaten up. But of course, if I had raised my hand or tried to defend myself, the one who would end up in jail would be me. It's just crazy.
You told me about the main person who hit you. How are you physically?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I had to go to well, I don't know if you can see it, but I had to go to the hospital to get a medical report for my injuries. But, well, no, I'm not going to play the victim. I'm just going to say that I'm going to use whatever legal means I have to go against this guy and face him where I need to face him in front of a judge, and that they pay for what they do. Because, of course, some of them are going to lead those young recruits, and we have to lead them where they belong, to jail.
Hey, he's not a kid, like you said. He's a man already. I think he's about 40 years old, right?
And 52, yeah.
And 52, this man is guiding youngsters, and you're telling me that some of these young ETA members, Moroccans, really? Yes.
Yes. Moroccans, children of Moroccans, second generation. Because, of course, what has this government achieved from 2017 until now? Young people have nothing to look forward to. So the young person wants a future. The young person wants a way out. The young person who has nothing to lose. If in certain places in Spain they've been told that the answer is the left, that those who are going to get them housing are the same ones who are in Congress, who have made it to Congress by killing people, who are celebrated every time they get out of prison with onguitoris and tributes. Well, they look in Alsasua. I don't know if you were there that day when there was so many forces. Everyone was there when they surrounded us. Well, the only one they arrested was me, but the one who was outside guiding the youngsters was the butcher of Mondragon. So I'm talking about Alsasua when Ciudadanos went there.
Yes. Albert Rivera and everyone was surrounded, yes.
And Ortega Lara, it was a beautiful thing that the ETA members started ringing the bells. You couldn't hear the speeches. It was all about resisting and going there and standing up, right? Well, the one who was outside guiding them was the butcher of Mondragon, who could have been this thug, because in the end, it's always the same thugs, the same Batasuna supporters, and the same violence. I've been warned by the state security forces about the resurgence and indoctrination happening in local venues. Driven by communist ideology, they're guiding them and focusing their attention on violence. So whoever doesn't want to see it can look the other way and ignore what happened in Berriozar. We're talking about Navarre and what they've done to the military.
It's just that daring, and we'll get to that now, but daring to go after army soldiers with baseball bats and iron bars, we haven't seen that in years.
Alberto, you and I have talked about this. If I see Mirche and Itpurba in a bar and I take a picture of them, right? 30 minutes later, 30 guys show up with iron bars and start hitting, and they see that they shouldn't hit an elderly lady, but they do it anyway. And could they have killed a child? No. That was an organized attack, organized guerrilla violence. And that's what the military themselves say. The attack lasted 16 seconds. So you realize that it's not just four thugs who saw a nuclear national shirt like they're trying to make us believe. No. It's terrorist violence. Call it low level if you want, but it's street terrorism.
But of course, in the town where the attack on the army soldiers happened, Berriozar Bildu won the last municipal elections there, and it's in Navarre, just 6 kilometers from Pamplona. How do you explain that? Why do they keep voting for the far left?
Well, there are various factors that can't all be explained at once, right? The fact that UPN and the PP split up, then get back together, then the candidacies fall apart, and now Vox appears. Well, it seems to fragment a united front that on the left, they managed to unite very well. In fact, the Frankenstein government begins in Navarre with Chivite and the ETA members. What's happening there? Well, there are a lot of people who live off Bildu. That Bildu is very effective on social media and with young people. And they also have that double standard. Recall when they attacked the journalist in Navarre, some condemn it and claim it's unrelated to Bildu, even though they all arrived together on the same buses wearing balaclavas. I mean, I finance it, I propose it, and then I say that I condemn all violence. So the left is doing a trick shot and playing a very strange game, but that's how it is. What needs to be done is to give a voice to the military, show that shameful beating in 16 seconds and what? And make them feel ashamed. So I think the explanation is very complicated because we're talking about Navarre, where Cantari goes out on the street every other day and lives on a street where there's a plaque for a terrorist right in front of his door. So it's hard to explain how in a place like Pamplona, there are more Bildu supporters, more Bildu ETA sympathizers than in Vizcaya.
Yes, because this is the peace Zapatero achieved, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Sí.
Well, in the end, everyone will end up in their place, and you and I will see Zapatero in prison soon. You'll go to the prison gate to see if you catch him.
For sure. Or I'll take Felipe Gonzalez with me so we can give him a hug too, you know? Yeah, I hope so. Look, for me, I stick with the fact that we've won on the pitch and socially, and we've given them a lesson. They've done what they know how to do, and we, from love, from patriotism, and from understanding, we hold on to these days of joy because it hurts them. No matter how much they've tried to paint it as some kind of plurinational team nonsense, that it represents different sensibilities. Go to hell. Spain has won, and long live Spain.
Long live Spain, Kake, and thank you for your journalistic work, which is impeccable. A hug, my friend.
Thank you, Albert. Big hug. God bless you.
May God bless you. Let's watch those 16 seconds of the attack on the army soldiers in Berriozar, a town of 11,000 inhabitants right next to Pamplona. What you just saw could have caused deaths. The president of ADME, the Association of Troops and Sailors in Spain. How are you, Marco Antonio Gomez?
Hello, Albert. Glad to see you again.
How are the injured? Because there are some, and some are in serious condition, right?
Well, yes, the truth is they are quite uneasy. Even though we are soldiers, there's no shame in saying they're afraid, because honestly, their lives have been in danger. We're talking about people who have suffered cranioencephalic trauma, broken and fractured ribs, wrists, shoulders, elbows, and lacerations. They've been attacked with iron bars, bats, and extendable batons. I mean, they went after them, they really did. And we could be talking about a tragedy.
They intended to cause harm, and if they killed someone or left someone badly injured, they didn't care much. There, I saw a child there. There were children, right?
Yes, Albert. The truth is we're very worried because the injured people's own friends said when they were talking to me, you know, they told me the first thing is there were children. I mean, there were families on the other side who were civilians. There was a lady who, it seems, and always being cautious, we believe was also injured with a broken nose or something because they went after everything that was there. Because the soldiers were there, they were going after the soldiers. The problem was that there were more people there and they didn't care at all. They went after anything that moved in a careless way. And well, you can see in the video footage how a kid at the end is disoriented. The poor kid didn't even know what was happening and got out however he could, moving chairs out of the way. But well, the truth is that there could have been a real tragedy.
Hours before and after, those who did it were acting tough on social media. They are the Basque independence group Ernai, which is like the youth wing of Bildu, the pro-ETA supporters. In this message, they say, I'm not going to explain any further, but Nazis have no place in our town. Or then they justify the attack in this other one by saying that members of the occupation forces had arrived. That is, soldiers from the Spanish army. I don't know what world they live in, but it's definitely a sick world. capable of causing so much harm to men, women, and children whose only crime is watching a soccer match? Have we lost our minds, or did the street violence never really go away?
Well, Albert, look, we're also very clear about this, both from the association and as military personnel. We are public servants. We repeatedly state that we don't consider anyone's political affiliation or get involved in politics. So imagine how we military personnel feel when we've been called in for fires, floods, torrential rains, the pandemic, and we've gone to any part of Spain where we've been asked and ordered to go. Can you imagine a soldier refusing to help someone because they're from the Basque country, Navarre, Catalonia, Seville, or Logroño? It makes no sense. Serving is in our DNA. What's more, we soldiers risk our lives to save the lives of citizens, no matter where they're from, no matter where they live, even if they don't like us. I've said it more than once. I don't know. In Navarre, I've had to deal with people who didn't like me, and yet later on, I still had to go help them. So how can it get to that point of hatred, going after the military if we're public servants? Do they come to us? They come to us when no one else can do anything, and we go to save lives. We save all lives. We don't ask whose life it is or what it is or who they believe in or don't believe in. We go to help, and it's very sad. It's very unfortunate. It's going back to dark times, Albert.
Chivite, the president of Navarre from the PSOE. Have these soldiers received any message?
As far as we know, no. What we can say is that we have already been, today we have been, and tomorrow we have been today, with UPN, who have given us their full support. They have also made it public on their social media. Tomorrow, we will also be with the Partido Popular, who have also given their full support to the military. Vox as well. We don't know anything else from any other party. Anyone who wanted to get in touch with us to show that affection, that support, and that backing for the armed forces has had the opportunity to do so. Yes, the Minister of Defense has called our colleagues to ask about their health, it must be said. So, the Minister of Defense has shown concern for the military, but that's it. No other party has called us, and we don't know anything else about the parties. We are here, and obviously we expect a political response appropriate to what has happened, which is a brutal attack on soldiers simply for being soldiers.
The mayor of that town in Navarre is from Bildu and has called you fascists because he says there was some symbol. It's very concerning because he's justifying the attack, isn't he?
Look, when it comes to politics, we don't get involved. What we can say is that someone wearing a t-shirt, whether it's appropriate or not, shouldn't be met with violence. You can disagree about many things. I can wear a t-shirt. There are t-shirts here that say Gora Euskadi, Gora this or that, and I don't go around hitting anyone. I might like it more, I might like it less. That's a personal matter for each person. But obviously what you can't do is beat someone up. And we're talking about one of the kids having his head split open. If he'd struck a bit lower on the neck, he could have killed him instantly, and we'd be discussing fatalities. Will someone actually justify a major assault over a t-shirt? Are we really doing this? We won't get involved or share our opinion. The justice system must clearly identify violent individuals and those who have brutally beaten service members. The justice system will determine the why, how, and when, and most importantly, hold them accountable for their actions, the brutality and aggression against military personnel. We're not getting involved because it's not our role as an association or as military personnel to weigh in on what a politician says, as long as it isn't directed against military personnel.
Well, gentlemen, this is very serious, much more than it seems. I'm ashamed that the mayor of the town, I don't care about the party, hasn't condemned it, or that the president of Navarre hasn't even posted a tweet. But, well, what can you expect from some people? In the end, those who attack you are almost always allies of this government. But that's my fight. Send them a big hug from me. Tell them to take care. A hug. Marco Antonio.
Hugs. And they all send you a hug too, because we know you support us a lot and you care about us.
You already know it. Hugs. Take care.
Hugs.
Castillón Confidencial by Albert Castillón.
We're waiting for you at the House of Sparkling Water, Vichy Catalan.
Gentlemen, do you remember the referee who officiated the Spain versus Argentina World Cup final? He was controversial, right? Because at first he seemed very strict with Argentina to the point of sending off a player with a red card. But then Spain scored 3 goals and he disallowed 2 of them. And more than suspicious, because they claim those were real goals. Nowadays, they make up things like VAR, put together a video, pretend there was an offside or not, who knows. VAR is like a matter of faith. You either believe in VAR or you don't. But I want to focus again on that referee, Slavko Vincic. He's Slovenian. You're going to see an image from when he was arrested 6 years ago. That man you see on his knees while the police come in is the referee of the World Cup final. The Slovenian was arrested in a cabin in Bosnia and Herzegovina, along with 9 women and 26 men. He was accused of being part of a prostitution ring, drug trafficking, and arms trafficking. Strange, isn't it, that FIFA would choose someone like that to referee something as important as a World Cup?
Well,
by the way, in his defense, he said he was going to see a friend. Come on, it's like what Abalos said when he got caught at the Parador in Teruel. You know, he claimed he was just visiting a friend. But the truth is that this man, I don't know why, despite the image you've seen, which would have ended anyone else's career, instead, FIFA has promoted him. Look, he refereed the Champions League final in 2024. This image we've seen is from 2020, so it had already happened. In the place where he was arrested, which, as I said, is Bosnia and Herzegovina, they found packages of cocaine and 10 pistols. 10. This referee was also the one who officiated Argentina's defeat in the Qatar World Cup. Do you remember? It was Argentina against Saudi Arabia. Argentina lost, Saudi Arabia won. And the organizer of the World Cup, which is Qatar, was very happy. It's curious that they always pick this guy for the finals. And in the final between Spain and Argentina, 2 goals were disallowed for Spain. It feels like someone chose him so that Argentina would win, pretending to be very strict with Argentina. Even, as I said, sending off a player and showing a lot of cards, but in the important moments, disallowing not 1 but 2 goals for Spain. First of all, it seems to us that FIFA is a mafia. It's obvious. It's not just an impression. That this mafia gets along very well with those in power, just as Donald Trump, right? They can even get cards removed with a single phone call. But also that we won because we were very stubborn, because in the end we scored 3 goals and they couldn't disallow 1 of them. Maybe the referee's intention was to get to penalties and use any excuse. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just me rambling. Let's see. Francisco Vendala, Lieutenant Colonel, you've worked in espionage. Does everything I've told you sound strange to you, or is it normal?
It sounds normal to me when it's crooks running the game. No better way to put it, referring to FIFA. To FIFA, as you said very well, it's a mafia, that's been proven. We're tired of seeing their blatantly irregular conduct. And not just suspicious, I think we already have the evidence right in front of us. But of course, the exclusive you have with this individual is incredible. I'm amazed to see this because this is the last referee who should even be officiating a 5th division match, if there is one, in the least football-loving country in the world. He has no standing, but it's not just me saying it. I'm not even a specialist. It's been proven, Albert. You said it yourself. Because the Spanish national team insisted on scoring 3 goals. If they had only scored 1, he would have disallowed it. He disallowed 2. His true colors started to show after the first half hour. It was all a setup with Argentina, precisely so they could treat Spain the way they did afterwards. That's how it is. And of course, with FIFA's backing, I think, Albert, that FIFA needs a top-to-bottom purge. I think that the national teams and world football can't put up with this situation any longer because it's becoming more and more like what we have in Spain, and nobody can stand it anymore. Well, the same thing happens in football. It's very important. Football is a spectacle. Football is also a business. Football brings countries together. It brings people together. It eases tensions. It helps. And what we can't keep doing is watching these spectacles precisely promoted by a referee who honestly maybe should be in jail, Al Albert.
I don't know, but maybe he's innocent. We're not judges here. No. But wasn't there anyone else to referee the final of the Qatar League World Cup, the Soccer World Cup in New York? Why is it always him in the finals? Is there something there we don't know about? Is there blackmail? Is there bribery? What's going on? This is no small matter. Refereeing a World Cup final for a referee is the peak of his career. Beyond what he earns, it's the peak of his career. Well, someone should start explaining these things, the whole VAR issue and a lot more. I think that if we audit the World Cup, it wouldn't even pass the first test. But anyway, there you have the facts, and get ready because the next World Cup is practically already set up with Morocco. They will pay for it. Morocco and Spain indirectly, because whatever Morocco does, you pay for it, even if you live in Spain. I mean, FIFA and Mohammed VI, anything can happen there, right?
Laughter, let's see. Knowing the Moroccan lobbies, knowing the Moroccan intelligence services, knowing everything they have achieved by greasing palms, but really greasing them well. Well, 4 years from now, I don't know if I'll even watch the World Cup because we already know the outcome. Morocco will win and this individual will referee the match. It's crystal clear to see. The World Cup in 4 years is no longer interesting.
If you'll allow me, there's one more mystery that today will help solve with the help of a guest. You might say this isn't important. Look, for me it is important, and very much so, that a produce item has disappeared from stores all over Spain. You'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. Pablo Manuel Alcaide Quintana, how are you? Yes.
Fine. Good afternoon.
Nice to meet you. He is from Valdepeñas, from Ciudad Real. He is an agricultural technician, a farmer, and a rancher. He was president of Asaja for 6 years, and today we've invited him to be here because it's about time a farmer raises his voice every now and then, right? I've received messages from many confidential sources telling me they've gone to different big supermarkets and have been unable to find green beans produced in Spain. But green beans can be grown here, right?
Absolutely. They've always been grown here and are still cultivated on a small scale. The thing is, the big companies that distribute it with unimaginable help, like you were saying earlier about the Moroccan secret services, the NGOs operating in Spain, several companies, various interests, they managed to make us go from about 5,000 hectares, most of them in greenhouses, around the year 2000 to practically zero now. Now it's just symbolic. There's, just a small market. In my case, since I grow organic vegetables for my clients, but in general for people to be able to consume them, it's impossible. Why? Well, a good campaign saying that in the greenhouses of Almeria, which is where most of it was produced, foreign workers were being exploited. A campaign saying that, for example, chemicals were being used when in Spanish agriculture, only the chemicals authorized by the Spanish government and the European community are used. Of course, it has managed to move that crop basically to Morocco, where 5 or 6 times more chemicals are used, because about 30% of what is used in Morocco could be used here. The most toxic ones are banned. They are not available to the farmer. Labor, well, if before you had someone working for the wage, for whatever the salary was at that time, starting from around the year 2000, well, now you basically have women, because they are the ones who work in Morocco in the greenhouses, harvesting this product with whatever chemicals are needed. We know what happened last year with the strawberries. There were abuse cases. In Morocco, sewage water was used for irrigation.
That is to say, it's not that green beans can't be grown, but they've caused the ones that come to Spanish supermarkets to be from abroad, especially from Morocco. Pressure through immigration, through labor, through exploitation. It's clear that those coming from there leave a bigger margin here since costs aren't the same. And who wins here? Because I've been told that some of your colleagues, Spanish farmers, go to farm in Morocco even though they're Spanish. That's how it is.
Yes, that's how it is. Unfortunately, when I started as the local president in 2010, my organization had been there the previous year, and in theory, it was supposed to defend the farmers. It's just an example of what happens in all sectors. Unfortunately, that's why we're in this mess. They had done a reverse trade mission. In this case, I don't know if it was to Senegal. This one was to Senegal. The idea was to take entrepreneurs not to sell products, but to produce them there and import them. So because of all these people who have done all these shady deals, because economically that might be acceptable, but morally it's reprehensible. And even more so because a government might do it, but for an agricultural organization that's supposed to defend the interest of farmers to do it, it's clearly immoral. So those people who knew how to grow those things here took their knowledge over there and started farming there with land that was offered to them by the Moroccan royal house, or in the case of Senegal, by the Senegalese authorities. That's what they're importing. And many times they label it, but then they manipulate it. Be careful, this isn't something unique or exclusive to Spain. You could get a container of green beans from Morocco, for example, in bulk. Here they take it and put it into 500-gram packages, and they can label it as Spanish. But that's the case with the Netherlands. The Netherlands, I don't know if you know this, but it's the second largest food exporter in the world. A country where people are packed together with a density of 500 or 600 inhabitants per square kilometer. Tell me how that's the second largest food exporter in the world. Well,
because they put a Made in Holland label on any foreign product. This is incredible because if they've done it with green beans, they can do it with any product using the same system. And Morocco could end up being the place where we have to buy fruits and vegetables. Do you remember the Sea of Plastic Vendala in Almeria when we used to go there? The amount of work it created, the industry that came from that was impressive. How can we let that go to waste?
Well, Albert, it's because we have leaders in general, all of them, some more, some less, who don't look out for Spain and our interests. Albert, that's just the truth. What Pablo Manuel said is further proof that in this case, Morocco is attacking us. Because those advertising campaigns that Pablo Manuel talked about are, I can assure you, designed, financed, and carried out by Moroccan intelligence services. Morocco attacks us in every area where it finds even the slightest opportunity. And we, in answer to your question, Albert, are not aware of that, and we don't respond to the attack with another attack. And we have many possibilities, but we are not aware of them, starting with our leaders, Albert, and that's the problem. And then on the other hand, we all come together with the Spanish national team now that it's in question, but it turns out they leave. As Pablo Manuel said, I find it terrible. Spaniards go to sell out Spain, not to sell Spanish products to other countries to bring them back here more expensive and make a bigger profit. That greed is also anti-national and unpatriotic, Albert. As long as we don't solve those two issues, we're not doing anything, Albert.
Amazing. Notice that we started talking about the World Cup and ended up in Morocco. Started with green beans and ended up in Morocco. Let's talk about Pegasus. You already know where we'll end up. El Confidencial has been publishing excellent information for days. The source is Moroccan intelligence. And they show that Morocco not only infected the phones of Sanchez and Marlaska, but also 250 phones in Spain between May 2018 and June 2019. It was done by the Directorate General of Territorial Surveillance, which is the Moroccan secret police. You know them, you've suffered the consequences when you were a spy in the CSIR. Who is the boss? Well, look, you're going to see him. We've shown his face here many times. Abdelatif Hamouchi, the one who spends his summers on the Costa del Sol, who hangs out with King Felipe, and who gives awards to Marlaska. It must be because Marlaska was the one this man got the most gigabytes out of his phone, so he gives him a medal so he won't tell what he knows, because I can't understand why they would give him the Grand Cross of Merit of the Civil Guard. Are they paying for his silence, Vendala?
Well, Albert, I think so. There's no other explanation. There's no other logical or normal explanation. They're paying for his silence because you can't do what we're doing. You don't mess around with these people. These people are constantly at war with us, Albert, but that's the problem. They've infiltrated us, Albert. That's the greatest success of any intelligence service. To infiltrate the police services, intelligence, armed forces, leaders in general, political and economic leaders, as we're seeing with Pablo from the other side, from the other country, well, they've done it. Let's not fool ourselves. It's an expansionist country, aggressively expansionist, and they've got us figured out. Albert, we've talked about it here a few times as well with terrible examples, and it's still the same. When you mention the royal family, I can honestly assure you that this goes way back. It goes back to Juan Carlos I, those friendships of my brother crying there with Hassan II and with Mohammed. They're very significant, Albert. Either we become aware that we are in a war or we've already lost it before even moving a single soldier.
I want you to see the cover. Tell me, please, Pablo Manuel, since you're dealing with it too.
And the detail about that. I'm going to show a comment. 4 or 5 years ago, my brother told me that here at the Civil Guard station in Valdepeñas, there was a Moroccan wiretapping service to listen in on the Moroccan community. Well, they would leave the station empty at night. A Moroccan from here who lives here in Valdepeñas, he was left there handling the surveillance at the Civil Guard barracks with the weapons section nearby and everything within reach. But what could happen?
And how did he listen? Intercepting cell phones or how? I mean, a device?
No, I don't know what kind of wiretaps they were because I don't have that many details. Yeah, but what really catches my attention is that a person once or twice a week would be left alone at the Civil Guard headquarters because the Civil Guard officers would go to their apartments, to their homes, wherever, and he would stay there alone with the key or with the door left open, doing the wiretaps on the Moroccans here in this area. I was just stunned. A detail that might seem minor, buddy, maybe not at the level of the royal family and all that, but it clearly shows the level of infiltration I was talking about.
Albert, look, Pablo, that's what we're saying. Let's see. There isn't an awareness among Spaniards in general, maybe some, that Morocco is not our friend, that the Moroccan who comes here acting all sweet and everything isn't coming to collaborate, but what is he coming for? To do his job for the benefit of Morocco. Of course, being left alone in a police station because they leave him alone, you can imagine any spy, that's what they want most, to be left alone in the other side's headquarters to do whatever they want. That's our problem. It's almost more on us than on them.
What you're telling me is shocking because in the end, it's like you said, if the Civil Guard station in Valdepeñas does this, I can't even imagine what they do in Madrid, in Barcelona, in big cities, right? What level of infiltration there is between them of collaboration, and those are orders from above. I assure you that no civil guard would leave their weapon with a stranger and go home calmly. That's an order from above. I'll be back with you in a minute because we need to get more information and we want to know more about what the alleged frontman of Rodriguez Zapatero said yesterday before Judge Calama. Miguel Ángel Pérez, precautionary measures, Libertad Digital, as you can see, is doing much better than Rodriguez Zapatero today. How are you? How's it going, my friend?
I'm always delighted to be with you, Albert.
Yesterday, I was worried about the court filing that Julio Martinez gave to Judge Calama. Today, they tell me he's dead. Teresa Gomez used to say, "I'm dead," says Zapatero around his house. Is the situation that serious, Miguel Ángel?
I think it's extremely serious for Zapatero, and honestly, I can recall very few cases where what's happening in this Plus Ultra case has happened before, because it's not just that one Aldama has come out, but 3 Aldamas have come out in this Plus Ultra case: Julio Martinez Sola, and Roberto Rosselli, both from Plus Ultra, right? That is to say, there are already 3 people here who, after what happened with Victor Daldama in the Supreme Court, have said, well, it's worth it for us to cooperate with justice. We're going to tell the truth. We're going to provide information so these crimes can be clarified. And that's what they're doing. And of course, what we're seeing is a movie that's like high noon. Zapatero has been left alone in the face of danger with his partner Gertrude, the secretary, and his daughters. Because Julio Martinez has already directly implicated him, he confirmed in court, and this is very important, that Zapatero had agreed to that 1% commission for pushing through the Plus Ultra bailout. And another fact that seemed especially scandalous to me is that Julio Martinez in that document stated that Zapatero knew 11 days before the Council of Ministers approved the bailout, he already knew it would pass. That's another key line of investigation.
Of course, what Julio Martinez Julito hasn't wanted to say until now is who in the government he was making these deals with, who he was negotiating with. He hasn't given any names, right? He hasn't given any names.
Julio Martinez has used the excuse that the one who called all the shots here was Zapatero, that he was the one with the political connections, and of course with Pedro Sanchez's government, but also with Nicolas Maduro's regime, it was Zapatero. And so those decisions, let's say, according to him, were out of his hands. He doesn't know exactly, he said in court, how Zapatero arranged the Plus Ultra bailout with Pedro Sanchez's government through CEPI. He said he doesn't know how it happened. But what is clear is that Zapatero is completely thrown under the bus, and above all, his legal strategy falls apart. Because until now, Zapatero's lawyer, Victor Moreno Catena, had set a strategy that relied on the annulment of the proceedings, of the investigation, of the mobile phone handed over by the United States, of Rodolfo Reyes, an executive at Plus Ultra, etc. Now, as we can see, we are faced with direct testimony from none other than Zapatero's right-hand man in this criminal scheme, who is Julio Martinez. Therefore, here the attempt to dismiss the messages by saying they were false, that the extraction was not properly carried out by the United States, etc., is already invalid. It falls apart now because there is already a highly valuable direct testimony, which is that of Zapatero's right-hand man.
Here, gentlemen, the one who has won so far is the anti-corruption prosecutor, Luzon, who has reached agreements with many, or at least preliminary agreements, and depending on what they reveal, the agreement will continue because Luzon is very strict and he does well by making these deals. But it seems very strange to me that Zapatero would negotiate the rescue of Plus Ultra with anyone other than Sanchez, his mentor, his father figure, his trusted man. Hasn't Julio Martinez mentioned that name before the judge?
Of course, exactly, Albert. I agree with you. All of this can only go through Sanchez. We're talking about the bailout of a Venezuelan airline with Venezuelan capital, Venezuelan executives, etc., even if it's Spanish, of 53 million euros that was done through CEPI. And it can only end up in the Council of Ministers presided over by Pedro Sanchez. There's no other possibility. It's true that Julio Martinez, in that regard, let's say he's washing his hands of it a bit, politically speaking, because he says that all of that was left in the hands of Zapatero. They received him because he was coming on behalf of Zapatero. And here, the one who was behind everything, knew everything, and ordered everything was Zapatero. So, the truth is, the former president, already in a delicate situation with the investigation, still hasn't given any explanations about the jewelry nearly a month later. I think that with the written and oral testimony of Julio Martinez, he's already on his way to the defendant's bench. Isn't that right?
Yes, but look, you and I have commented before that the current government, Sanchez and his ministers, at least some of them are or act like a criminal organization, like a mafia. Now we know more. For example, this man you're seeing is Jaime Sanz, an expert. He was the man from the Treasury who should have investigated Julito Martinez and didn't do it in 4 years. And he didn't file the declaration. He didn't have accounts in Spain, but he opened 39 companies. Who gave him the order not to look into this man or to stop doing so? Well, either Maria Jesus Montero or someone very close to her. That is, it seems like Zapatero was looking for people in the government to ask for personal favors to keep his business going, which was being a lobbyist, a middleman, right?
Well, Albert, we should remember that Maria Jesus Montero, who was Minister of Finance until recently, once said she wanted to be like Zapatero when she grew up. In other words, she is totally devoted to Zapatero. Maria Jesus Montero, from the information I have, is already on the verge of being charged in the CEPI scheme, or the so-called dirty tricks case, which people call by different names, in the National Court by Judge Pedraz. And yes, that's where we are. We're talking about the dirty underbelly, and I think there's a corrupt network embedded there. Not only in the prosecutor's office, not only in the civil guard, but also in the tax agency. Because some really strange things have happened here, like how David Sanchez got away, how suddenly Zapatero, when people have been talking for years about Zapatero scams, nobody investigates. I mean, there are some very strange things going on in the tax agency. And what a coincidence that Maria Jesus Montero has been the head of the Treasury, the Treasury for so many years. And now she herself is also on thin ice.
Well, and also of CEPI, right? Of the CEPI company, because the last three heads of CEPI who were indicted, all of them say that Maria Jesus Montero had a romantic relationship with one of them. That would already be too much.
Well, in fact, when I saw it, I published it myself. I mean, look how well I know it. I published it myself. That's right. Remember the famous incident at the Las Salinas Hotel in Cabo de Gata? Do you remember? That's where they spent a few summer days together, and we don't know if there was any passion involved. Vicente Fernandez and Maria Jesus Montero, of course, based on what we published, since we even interviewed the direct witness. This witness, who filed a complaint with the civil guard, says that Maria Jesus Montero shared a room and lived as a couple with Vicente Fernandez, the former president of CEPI. So, just imagine how substantial this information could be, considering the possible influence peddling and all the decisions coming from CEPI, knowing that the former president of CEPI had a very, very close relationship with Maria Jesus Montero.
Well, it's clear Zapatero is caught. Zapatero has no way out. He's going to trial, and it's very likely he'll be convicted, maybe even go to prison. How is Zapatero going to react to this? Is there a possibility that he might flee? Let's remember, his house hasn't been searched. He still has a diplomatic passport. All of that seems risky to me.
There is a risk, I agree with you. I think there is an obvious risk because besides, Zapatero is, as Judge Calama said, a public figure. Everyone knows that, everyone knows, etc. But well, Puigdemont was also a public figure. He held a rally and fled. So, I mean, seeing what happened with Puigdemont, with the Sanchez-aligned police, the Sanchez-aligned civil guard, because the Sanchez clique has infiltrated all the institutions, including the police and the civil guard. No one can deny that at some point they could help someone like Zapatero to escape. Someone like Zapatero. He has connections with China, with Venezuela, with countries like the Dominican Republic, and so on. I think there is a risk, and we'll see what happens with Zapatero. I don't know if he intends to flee, but it's definitely very complicated for him. And for me, what I've heard is that he has been completely devastated for weeks. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. He barely wants to leave the house because he knows the legal trouble awaiting him is huge. Extremely serious, because here we're no longer talking about David Sanchez and Begoña Gomez, where maybe Begoña Gomez gets sentenced to a little bit of jail time, but not enough to actually go to prison, or David Sanchez, who has been sentenced to disqualification. Here with Zapatero, the crimes are much, much more serious, and as you rightly said, it can't be ruled out that he could end up in prison. So I understand why Zapatero is worried.
And sometimes they say he has mentioned at dinners or lunches with friends that China isn't a bad country to live in. I'll just leave it at that. There's no extradition treaty. He could easily live anywhere in China, and the Chinese government would protect him. There's no doubt about it, really. Absolutely. I read you. I follow you. Precautionary measures, come to court, and you were hoping to take a vacation. You're in a tough spot. Take care, Miguel Angel Perez.
Big hug.
Albert.
In fact, look, we were talking about Julio Martinez, about the alleged frontman Julito. When he went to the Senate, there's a scene where he said what he has now told the judge after the deal with the prosecutor's office, but he didn't say it with words. He said it with gestures. In the end, right, gestures say it all. Look at this moment. He has the plus president. Plus
Ultra ends.
in the Zapatero family.
Is it true?
Yes, it's true.
True.
I appreciate it. I ask you, the money from Plus Plus Ultra ends up with the Zapatero family, and he nods his head as if to say, they haven't let me say it, but of course. Well, now he says it openly and to the judge. And now we know who the second biggest liar in Spain is after Pedro Sanchez. Also, this guy thinks he can convince anyone by arching his eyebrows with very forceful gestures. Listen to how Zapatero lies.
I did absolutely nothing, and I wasn't interested at all in the Plus Ultra bailout. Julio Martinez's proposal to be a consultant for a relevant analysis once it is established. Julio Martinez told me that he had some kind of unspecified relationship with Plus Ultra.
Did they know that you were the main consultant?
That's speculation.
No, well, it's a question.
No.
Oh, really? Francisco Vendala, Pablo Manuel, you're still with us. Pablo Manuel, Mayor of Quintana. How well politicians lie, Pablo Manuel, how dangerous they are. You must have come across some while being the local president of Asaya for 6 years, right?
Quite a few. The mayor here who never leaves, let's see if the man finally goes. Senator, he's still a senator?
Yes.
With what I've spoken with him more than once, and on some occasions I've had to do things that didn't exactly earn me his friendship. Precisely when I first arrived, there was an issue about some money from a local pasture association. We were talking about 500,000 euros. We're not talking about that money belonged to an association of farmers and ranchers, and the man wanted the town hall to give him authorization so he could manage that account from the local pasture commission. Of course,
The pasture commission is the money commission. 500,000, my God, my God. Now that's real money. Well, politicians know you shouldn't trust them much, Pablo Manuel, and you, Vendala, you know it too. But in general, I'm sorry. We have a problem, Vendala. They put the party label, and the leader before Spain. And I think that's really serious, isn't it?
Always. In fact, I'd say more. They put themselves first, then the party, if their interests align. Then not Spain, never Spain, Albert, unfortunately. And you said it very well. In general, there are exceptions. There's always an exception. But what do? What they do well is reinforce this rule. We have politicians who, besides the fact that most of them are nobodies, have never lifted a finger in their lives, nor are they willing to do so. On top of that, they get involved for the reasons we've mentioned instead of for the opposite. They don't understand that ultimately they're nothing more than our administrators. Our public employees, as the term says, are at our service and they get paid, eat every day, and pay for their children's schooling with our taxes. What does that mean? With our hard work, with the sweat of the people across from them, us. As long as that mindset doesn't change, Albert, we will continue to suffer as we are suffering with this group. And they all are, and on top of that, they lie like scoundrels, as we heard Rodriguez Zapatero do in a brutal way.
Well, gentlemen, pay attention to the newspaper Melilla Hoy. I get a lot of information from local press people. Look at these two covers. This is not a coincidence. Notice that today this looks like a special issue about Morocco. None of the three of us are going to get any medals. But after what happened in Gibraltar, after tearing down the fence and saying it's a great success because they've knocked down a wall and think that we've paid for it, now the Melilla press is already gearing up. There are two headlines that you're seeing which announce that Melilla could be the next place where the fence is brought down, where there would be no border with Morocco. Pay attention because they're asking for it, says local groups, merchants. We need to put an end to the physical border with Morocco. Why not do the same as Melilla did? This is the buzz, getting ready for what they want to set in motion, which you mentioned would come, Vendal, months ago.
Let's see, that's the war, that's the aggression, and it's called hybrid warfare, which it has always been surreptitious. That's using third parties, which is what Morocco has always done with Spain. Let's remember the Green March. Let's remember the Sahrawis. They used them and then swallowed them up. Well, now they're starting with that. They never miss an opportunity. Now that we have handed over Gibraltar in a shameful way through betrayal as well, in such an absurd manner, now they're getting started, and behind all of this, the intelligence services are involved again because their goal is Ceuta and Melilla so that they fall like ripe fruit, Albert. Let's not think there will be a military aggression. No, what they're trying to do is make Ceuta and Melilla more Moroccan, to get rid of anything like fences or obstacles so that then everyone can come in and they're ours. Imagine it's a kind of green march where all the Moroccans would come in. They've torn down the fence, they've torn down the border. We're all brothers for 24 hours then into the sea. Well, and be careful.
Normalizing, well, all that's left is for the CIS, because this is a combination. The CIS asks a question about it. Public television, TV1 or La Sexta, the regime's channel, normalizes the situation, and then they sell it to you as a success. With Gibraltar here, you go out on the street and most people say it's great that they've taken down a border. This is basic manipulation. And speaking of that, I want you to listen to Pablo Manuela Felipa. He talks about the more than 2 billion that were meant for agriculture and this government hasn't used.
If they're doing everything between the European Union and Spain to ruin our farmland, how are they going to come up with money to help it?
Where are the 2 billion and change, almost 3 billion that haven't been used? Because I thought they were returned, but no, they go to something else, right?
The thing is, most of that money that's supposedly meant for the agricultural sector doesn't actually go to the agricultural sector. Let's see, the farmers get a part, which is from the CAPI and all those things, but that part is getting smaller and smaller. Well, we could study whether this has been negative and toxic for the agricultural sector, but most of the money, and it's getting bigger and bigger, goes to other initiatives. Those actions aren't given to farmers and ranchers, but to an environmental group to do a study about something unknown. An organization, usually organizations made up mostly of officials from the regional government, from the ministry, who know where things are going, and they get some money out of it for themselves or for friends or family members who submit a project that meets the requirements they themselves have set. So most of that money doesn't go, no, of course not. It doesn't end up where it's supposed to. Huh?
It doesn't end up, or you guys don't see it.
Look, for example, I don't get anything. I could apply for a small subsidy because I still have some livestock, which I had at some point. I used to have animals, but I prefer not to ask for anything to avoid all the problems they give me. They give me 1,000 and tell me I have to spend 1,500 to get the 1,000. Well, 8,000. In my case, I don't get anything because it's not worth it. In fact, the cap subsidies for the last 3 or 4 years since the last reform, most of the people who were entitled to receive 1,000 under 2,500 or 3,000 euros, no, they don't apply for it because it's more burdensome and more costly to apply than not to apply. So what a disgrace.
What kind of livestock do you have?
I used to have goats and sheep. Now I only have goats. The thing is, I don't have them anymore. Manchego cheese comes from Manchega sheep. And in 2010, 2018, and 2020, I had to get rid of them, the last ones, the goats, because they said they had tuberculosis and had to be killed. And also with a very simple process, they tell you, no, they run a Mantu test. They take it out and say, this animal tests positive. You must take it to the slaughterhouse. For me, that meant going to a slaughterhouse in the province of Ciudad Real, which was 200 kilometers away because the province is very large. 200 kilometers getting a truck, taking those animals to the slaughterhouse. There were 8 animals in total between the compensation they gave me and what the slaughterhouse paid me for the animals. That didn't count since they claimed to discard 2 animals. Who knows if that's true, but whatever. Well, it cost me money. It cost me money. I lost the animals, and on top of that, I had to pay money. Then at the end of the following year, they came back with the same thing, and just listen to the comment. I was checking animals, and after going through 30 animals, one of them tested positive. Once one of them tests positive, it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 10, because they shut down your farm. You can't sell them. You can't. Well, so I told the person doing the inspection, I said, can you put as many as you want? I said, yeah, I don't care. Yeah, and he says to me, well, yeah, I'm not going to mark them all, because if I did, I'd get the guy who came before me in trouble, the one who checked before. I've already told you about the arrogant guy there was. He says, but anyway, I'll mark a few more for you. If they record it, it's like a medal for finding so many positives. So if he found 2 positives plus 6 to 8 doubtful ones and a few more he marked, they all count as positives.
How lax they are in their actions, I don't know. I understand that you only have goats and not billy goats, which you would have to go look for at the Council of Ministers, that too. Well, let's talk about the World Cup, Arabia and Bernabeu. There's a controversy here. Should the Spanish national anthem have lyrics, yes or no? Everyone has their own opinion.
I think the anthem shouldn't have lyrics because for each Spaniard, the anthem carries its own lyrics inside every Spaniard. When the music plays for me, it's long live Spain and the Spanish people, long live their strength and their honor. And everyone feels the anthem and gives it their own lyrics.
About the lyrics and the lack of lyrics of the Spanish anthem, well, I want you to know that Royal March, which is the national anthem of Spain, was already used as an anthem by the revolutionaries in 1926, the Cristeros, in the name of, at the cry of Long Live Christ the King. But there's another one, which is the one my mother used to sing, which was in honor of the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Well, and Nomru, I think that's the name, has sent me an email with the lyrics that Peman, the writer during the Franco era, wrote, so the anthem did have lyrics. Vendala, you had to sing that at school? No.
Well, the lyrics are beautiful.
By the way,
very neutral, despite what people think. It's very neutral. No, it doesn't do anything more than...
I'm going to read a little without singing it. No, I'm too old for that. Long live Spain. Raise your arms, sons of the Spanish people who rise again. Glory to the homeland that knew how to follow the path of the sun over the blue of the sea. Spain triumphs. The anvils and the wheels sing to the rhythm of the hymn of faith. Together with them, let us sing, standing up, new life and strength and the power of work and peace. Long live Spain, raise your arms, sons of the Spanish people who rise again. Glory to the homeland that knew how to follow the path of the sun over the blue sea. There is nothing political here.
No, nothing. Peman was very neutral. Peman was more monarchist. He was with the previous regime, but he was a very intelligent person. I think the lyrics are perfectly valid. Now, given how things are, Spaniards, let's always be realistic and leave things as they are, because if someone tries to write new lyrics now, you can't imagine how we'd end up fighting.
They'll put an Islamic veil on it. 4 people who arrive by boat. They stir things up. They change everything. Well, more about the World Cup and the celebrations. Fabian and Maria Jose.
And what makes me happiest is seeing Spain united. It makes me laugh because people used to look at me out of the corner of their eye for wearing a bracelet, for having a bracelet with the Spanish flag. Nowadays, they don't. It's something that makes me very happy. And all the things they can call you.
$1.5 million people took to the streets over soccer. 70,000 for the future of their children, and we consider ourselves satisfied. Those of us who go, everything that happens to this country, all the bad things, it's not enough. It deserves it.
Well, of course, she compares. Let's see, at the March for Dignity we held in Madrid, where all of us here were there were 200,000 of us. It's not comparable to 1.5 million. It's true that for certain things people flood the streets and for others it's much harder. Well, what can I say, Vendala? You've been to them all, haven't you?
I was at practically all of them, about 85%. What I'd like to do is make an appeal. 16 years ago, we won the first World Cup. The outbursts of joy were very similar to what we're seeing now. So they were well-deserved. 16 years have passed and now it all seems to have deflated. We return to tension, me at one demonstration, you at another, back and forth. I would appeal to Spaniards to realize what Spain is. That if Spain goes down, we all go down with it. That it's our children, that it's our parents, poor things. What is Spain? There can't be, under any circumstances, any division. Because if not, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. Albert, we need to wake up. You don't see anywhere else in the world what we see here with the anthem, with the flag, with the symbols. Let's leave those things behind. Let's see if we realize that a nation has to command respect, starting with us respecting it ourselves. Let's not let this fade away. Let's unite even more. Let's consolidate it and make it grow as we see it.
What beautiful words. Vendala, I hope so. I'll sign them. Pablo Manuel will too.
I just think we're on a countdown. So there are fewer and fewer Spaniards. The Spaniards were getting older and older, and the ones who are more likely to protest and do things like that are the young people. And most of the young people are hardly even Spanish anymore. That's the problem. We're going to leave behind a country that no one will recognize. It won't even be Spain at this rate.
Well, we're here to fight for it. And as for being older, You must have said that about yourself. Of course, because here Vendala and I are just like kids, just children, just children. Well, Pablo Manuel Alcaide, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Keep taking care of farming and livestock. We'll talk soon.
Hugs. Thank you.
My friend, come on, Vendala. Take care, my friend. Take care. That's right. There's a march in Marbella next Sunday. Let's listen to Guerrero, who is announcing it.
I'm going to the demonstration planned in Marbella. But what Doña Sofia de Borbon says, I don't agree with at all. That thing she says about the Bourbon taking a step forward, he's going to take a step forward in favor of globalism because he's a globalist just like Pedro Sanchez, just like Fehu.
Well, it was his cousin who was saying that there, and I got her to talk, and she said, I invite him. Come on, if the king goes, I'll be over the moon. But I'm telling you, members of the royal family and several with the last name Bourbon are going to that demonstration. I give you my word. There are several dukes, counts, and Bourbons, and I like it when the nobility gets involved and stands next to an electrician or a plumber to defend this country. I think it's a very good example, Vendalas.
Of course, also so that they continue to be noble and not ignoble like many of them have become.
Yes, sir. I always count on you. Take care, Vendalas.
A big hug. See you later. Thank you.
A few more final messages and some important information in a minute.
91, 915,930,491, 91, 9,159,304, 91, completely trustworthy.
Yesterday, we saw an image that really upset many viewers, me included. This animal in a cage in a kitchen in Torrelavega in Cantabria. He has been there for 2 years, according to the Animal Protection Organization. 2 years locked up in that cage, barely ever getting out. They asked us for help. We called and gave the phone number of the Torrelavega City Council, and a lot of viewers have called asking for explanations. Because besides that City Council, well, says it gives 40,000 euros a year for animal welfare. Well, I'm sure something more can be done, right? Let's listen to some of the people who called.
I just called the Torrelavega City Hall because I was really moved by what you said about that dog. They told me there that complaints have to be made in person at the City Hall in a formal request. But anyway, I encourage everyone to call and give them a hard time about this outrage.
They told me about the little dog that's now a legal matter, and they gave me an email address to write to the Councilman for Animal Welfare.
I just called the Torrelavega City Hall, and well, I already complained about the situation verbally, and apparently they're getting a lot of calls. The poor woman answering the phone, you can't even imagine. So she told me that they're already working on it, that the police went to check on how it was doing and that it's fine. Imagine crying day and night, but well, it's fine. And since everything is already in court.
I called the City Hall with the number you left for me on the screen. Well, it turns out that someone answered me, a lady, and I told her that I wanted to file a complaint over the phone, and she told me I have to do it in writing. Just so you know, because I suppose they'll tell the same thing to anyone who calls.
Marina Espe, Conchita, Susie, thank you so much. You are soldiers in this trench, all standing together. Look, we've done what we could, and that's to refer the case to the Seprona unit of the Civil Guard. We did this through Manel, a good friend of the show, and hopefully it will have results. I'm afraid it's already in the courts. That is, without a court order, it's not easy to get the dog out of there. Well, let's push a little harder. Email address of the Counselor for Animal Welfare. Besigns@aitotorrelavega.es. Send an email if possible, or if not, use the City Hall phone number we gave you yesterday, 942-812-100. 00. I know, maybe they'll say we're being annoying. Look, I don't care if we make someone get up from their chair and do their job, because if it's come to this point, it's because someone hasn't done it until now. Let's see if we can do it. And thank you so much for being so supportive of an animal that is possibly being mistreated. I believe Chema about the part he left out. Let's go to the newsroom and I'll tell you more. Susana Gas, latest messages.
We're here, Albert, in the Castellon Confidential newsroom. Yes, we've changed rooms, but we're still collecting all the comments and especially the messages from our confidential sources. That's the case of Carmen Reyes. She says she's a Spanish citizen by choice, and they've denied her the returned immigrant pension because they say she's not Spanish by origin, even though she provided proof that her mother was indeed Spanish and emigrated to Venezuela after the war. After appealing, they even refer me to the Supreme Court, which is something I can't afford. Meanwhile, I see millions of euros being allocated to other areas. They deny me assistance of about 600 euros. Also, MMK says Sanchez is an absolutely chameleon-like character. He changes color according to his surroundings, and like a chameleon, he throws out his long tongue to catch the fools that are left around, and apparently there are many. Alfonso says that an immediate repeated audit of subsidies to UNHCR is urgently needed. Sergio, however, says what else has to happen in Spain? What else needs to happen in Spain to wake up all those who are asleep and numbed by Sanchismo and also by quite criminal socialism? We are scared. Nati says that when she saw the images of all the people in the streets with the Spanish flag celebrating the cup, which I am absolutely proud of, Nati tells us, she couldn't stop imagining that same number of people protesting against the government. It would be wonderful, don't you think? What a shame that it seems like only football motivates them. Malena says that she wishes she also had the same feelings, a passion for football too, but also to defend our country and get rid of those who are absolutely plundering and destroying us. Concha says that the socialists are experts at lying to your face to cover up all that corruption. They are capable of all kinds of wickedness. Anna also writes to us and says that she doesn't know what the judge is waiting for. She really doesn't know what the judge is waiting for, she tells us. To take away the passports of the entire Zapatero family, to freeze all their accounts, to put them in prison. In this country, it seems that justice is just way, way too slow. All of that was already known from the beginning. He should be behind bars and start returning the money stolen from Spain. Probably, if it were one of us, this would have already happened to us. Paulino says that Julito is asking Julito specifically to spill the beans if he doesn't want to end up in jail. And we'll leave it here with this advice from this friend. Another important piece of advice from me, follow us on all social media. Every day at 7 in the morning, Castellon Confidential brings you the latest news, and especially that digital newspaper, which is very important to stay well informed.
Thank you very much, and a new channel that will be great for you this summer. Your Body Knows 2.0 is part of the family. They just posted a very useful animation for the summer. Take a look at a preview.
In any given summer, a man just wanted to survive the heat. But there was a problem. The sun had other plans.
Today,
5 mistakes that are frying you this summer. Mistake number 1, opening the window at 3 in the afternoon.
All right. Stay tuned to the channel and you'll learn a lot. And it's also a very useful way to learn because you can even show those videos to children and they'll learn just like you or maybe even more. Please subscribe and give it a like. Your Body Knows 2.0 is part of the family. Esperanza, thank you for your words.
I love it. I listen to you every day. On the days I can't, I save it for later. On YouTube for Saturday and Sunday when you don't have a show, I listen to it calmly.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, and there's an audio clip from Julio that's really funny. Listen.
Guys, I don't know what happened. I fell asleep. I just woke up and the whole street is full of cars honking with Spanish flags.
Damn, I think Pedro Sanchez resigned or was kicked out. Check what's happening. I wish it was because of that. I wish, Julio. Thanks for that great sense of humor. Enrique sent me a strange photo. Sanchez is wearing a jersey and instead of a number, it has 3 letters, HDP. I'm sure you know what that means. Let me know. Well, and then Juan made keychains, interestingly with the same initials, but he adds PSPPSHP. If anyone please wants to translate that for me, you'd be doing me a favor because, or maybe I'll ask Ayuso, see if she gives me an idea. Well, there's more. Froilanister, it's from Angeline's. You know that Sanchez wanted to go down and take a picture with Donald Trump and the national team when they won the cup. What happened and why he didn't go down is right here.
Let me through. I'm the protagonist.
Mr. Zonas, please stop making a fool of yourself. You can't go through. Well, Miguel Angel sent me this meme, Pedro Sanchez, and there he appears as the king, a PhD in promises, champion of itumas, king of showing off, expert in dividing. It's to put that plaque on any wall. And one more from Angeline's. Even the brother himself shows up. Take a look.
Pedro, I've decided to write and perform this song today about the national team's win.
How awful.
Damn it, David. I preferred when you were in Badajoz and I couldn't hear you.
Pedro, I've decided that now I want to be the national soccer team's coach, so you can take advantage of the fact that the bold fascist is coming to tell him that he's fired.
But sweetheart, I don't know if...
Are you going to give me trouble now too, cold-hearted? You never do anything for me. Look at my tracksuit. I'm the perfect coach.
In the background, you can see a Palestinian flag and on the wall a photo of Delcy Rodriguez on an oil barrel. Bolaño.
Damn it, Mortadelo. This grass is a mess. Cut it properly. The players are coming soon. Honestly, I don't know why I pay you. Yes, right away, bossy exploiter. So, when the players arrive, I'll give them a hug, and you take the chance to slip the summons into their pocket.
Understood, your most exploitative Sanchezness. Everyone obeying your Sanchezness. Friends, that's the way to understand Spain. We were winning the battle. Trust me, I said it from the beginning. All the government partners are having a really hard time with the Spanish team's victory, even the government itself. So let's keep the celebration going. Let's increase the dose of optimism and let's move forward because we're going to win the war. I'll see you in the trenches tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
You know it and I know it. We are discreet. You are confidential. I am discreet. Everyone is discreet. Everyone is discreet. But only for open minds and for people who are alert, truly alert. From the trench the bullets whistle and there's no way to get out there. Here freedom has wings of wax. When I saw Castillo, Susana Gak, your girl Castillo and the rest, thank you very much. Subscribe.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.